Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster is a good RPG for its time with an interesting way to play because it uses the spell slot system, which is a system used in Dungeons & Dragons. This game doesn't have much of a story, sadly. You go from town to town solving everyone's problems, including defeating chaos. Overall, the systems in place that are basic to say the least, but that's to be expected from a game that came out in 1987 for the Famicom, later in 1990 for a US audience. You start off choosing the 4 main classes. You choose between the fighter, black mage, red mage, thief, and white mage. I personally chose a red mage, a fighter, a white mage, and a black mage. While the white magic felt only useful when someone was hurt, I wish it had more support spells that I didn't find the need to use any of the anti-undead spells since the main attackers were the warrior and red mage. The warrior was strong throughout the campaign. He would mostly attack until late game, where you have the option to use white magic, which wasn't the most helpful because of how low the spell charges are. I also didn't feel like buying what I needed from the small list pool. The red mage was useful throughout the campaign by either using black magic buffs or just attacking the enemy. Red mage was useful throughout the campaign by either using black magic buffs or just attacking the enemy, which one-shot everything we came across. Finally, black mage was okay. I feel like I was too scared to dish out charges of his magical attacks, but finally the black mage was okay. I feel like I was too scared to dish out charges of his magical attacks, but towards the end of the game, he had an okay attack. It was a good chip damage for the rest of the party. I wish I had a notification whenever I got a new spell charge after the battle on level up. Would I recommend this game to people? In all honesty, unless you're curious as to how Final Fantasy started, I wouldn't have played it. Thanks to the modernized improvements, like how when you finish an enemy off, you don't miss your attack anymore, or when buying items, you can see who can equip what. I probably would have quit the game, or when buying items, Thanks to modernized improvements like how when you finish an enemy off, you don't miss your attacks anymore, or when buying items, you can see who can equip what. I probably would have quit the game, along with the final boss, Chaos, having 20,000 HP. I would not recommend you play this game to completion. The original creator, Hironobu Sakaguchi, was having a tough time trying to get into the working world and decided that this would be his Final Fantasy because this was his last try at making a successful game or going back to university. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of the Final Fantasy, was a person who worked at a video game rental store employee as a composer. 10 months was all they had to develop the game. They did it with only 4 people and later was helped by the B team at Square at the time to get past the finish line. Amano was first drafting pixelated work, but Hironobu Sakaguchi said, "Do not change your style for the video game. We will do that. All you must do is draw in black and white so we can choose the color, since the NES had a very limited color palette." I feel like the difficulty was okay. There was a point in the early game around the marsh cave area where the poison enemies would be stronger than a level 15 party. I could just be bad at the game, considering this was my first playthrough though. The rest of the game felt easy compared to that dungeon. The recolors of the enemies made sense for the time, but I just wished those enemies' colors didn't appear in the same fight. The encounter rate is probably what got me the most frustrated I have ever had to work with. Obviously, other games could be worse with that feature, but luckily you can turn those off. I also found it hard to find places to go after getting the airship because I felt like I had to explore the whole world by the time I got the airship. Chaos. This is probably the toughest fight for me in the game, and the only point where I grinded for levels since this guy has a massive 20,000 HP total for this game. Compared to other bosses that had around 2,000 HP, only grinded for 10 levels, which made it easy because of the new boost feature in the Pixel Remasters. The music in this remaster is very good. I played with the remastered soundtrack and boy was it a game changer. I have the battle theme stuck in my head thanks to this game. Some of my favorite songs are Battle, Mount Gulch, and the airship. Final Fantasy I is an interesting game to look back on because it's the first big long-running franchise, and without that fact, I don't think people would play it. The game is still very dungeon crawlery and has very little story compared to other games in the series. The idea of using a D&D style system for magic wasn't a great decision in the long run since mages became hard to use, and since I didn't want to waste magic charges, the Pixel Remaster made this game playable because of the remastered soundtrack and being well remixed. Final Fantasy is an interesting beginning to the series with a large focus on gameplay over the story.